shall I go? What shall I do?
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Behave yourselves!
There is nothing to be afraid of.
They wouldn't have left us up here all night if there wasn't something wrong.
Your friends aren't really missing. They're not really dead. This is just some kind of joke.
What the hell was that?
That thing that's out there, whatever it is, can't be real. It's just your imagination.
I swear I'm not dreaming! I'm not dreaming!
Or maybe, just this once, you're dead wrong.
Hello, YouTubers out there. This is Jerry Saravia at the Movies. So today we're reviewing 1983's The Final Terror. And I was curious to see this slasher film. I'm not necessarily an 80s slasher film completist by any stretch of the imagination, but this one had a certain interest for me because it was directed by Andrew Davis, who later helmed much superior work such as The Fugitive and The Package with Gene Hackman and Under Siege. Far better movies than this one, but I was curious. I'd never seen Andrew Davis's first feature, so Final Terror was his first feature. This, of course, also has Joe Pantoliano, who's appeared in Andrew Davis's later films as well. And this is Daryl Hannah's first film, not to mention Rachel Ward. So I thought, well, I'll give it a shot. I mean, just to see these actors just starting out more or less in their prime, why not? Well, other than the novelty of that, which wouldn't have been such a novelty in 1983, except it sort of was, because Andrew Davis was not really well known yet, to be sure, but the film was actually made in 1981 and couldn't get a distributor. So by 1983, Daryl Hannah was sort of becoming well known because of Blade Runner. Rachel Ward was probably even better known because of the miniseries The Thornbirds. So these actors, and not to mention Adrian Seamed, who was in T.J. Hooker. So The Final Terror is not a film that helped their careers necessarily because it wasn't seen by anybody. So their careers already sort of started despite the film not being released. The film was released on the strengths of these actors. So that is a novelty in and of itself to a certain extent. You know, there are movies like Chasing Dreams, which came out in, I want to say, 89, 90, straight to VHS. This was a film that Kevin Costner appeared in. And he's highlighted in the poster art, I remember, for the VHS copy. But he only has one scene in that movie. I've never seen the film, but I'm told it's only one scene. So this does happen, of course. It happened a lot then. Anyway, so The Final Terror is a slasher picture, a hybrid of Friday the 13th and Deliverance, because it's sort of a survivalist type movie, and there's even a scene where a lot of the survivors of this threat, a slasher villain who is covered in leaves and all sorts of stuff, and you never know who is the identity of this person. They are swimming through the rapids in a raft, and that is the one scene that I instantly recalled Deliverance. The film is set out in the woods, and it's, you know, all these rangers that go together camping to this particular section of the woods, which the driver of the bus, Joe Pantoliano, who plays a character named Edgar, whose mother was in a mental institution, and may in fact be the slasher villain because she was she relocated to the woods somewhere. Anyway, he says, oh no, we shouldn't go to this one place. You know, it's very dangerous, it's very treacherous, it's hard to hike, and the trails, I know somebody that died, and blah blah blah. This is Joe Pantoliano, who plays a very unlikable character, so unlikable that, I mean, I don't want to say I wanted him killed from the start. That wouldn't be right. But I want him out of the picture. immediately. And I like Joe Pantoliano. All these characters are not exactly the most appealing, except for Daryl Hannah and Rachel Ward. Not because they're women, but because they're just much more appealing. They're not out to be antagonistic or hostile to anybody. So anyway, all these rangers go to this section of the woods that they want to go to, which is about 30 miles or 60 miles away from where they're coming from. And that's it. That's the movie. So they are camping, and they have their little campfire, and they're by the woods and near a lake. And I thought to myself, this is no different than Friday the 13th. What is this business about a survivalist type movie? Because, well, in a sense, in Friday the 13th movies, at least the first 7 of them, all were set in Crystal Lake Camp, right? So that's near a section of the woods. It's no different. There's also a lake. This movie is totally indistinguishable from Friday the 13th, other than the fact that the villain is not Jason Voorhees and can be, spoiler alert, easily killed. So that is it. That's the sheer novelty of this movie. There is nothing else to this movie whatsoever. Those of you that like gory kills, there's only really 1 or 2 in this movie. That's it. In all 83 minutes of it. The movie is complete boredom. Completely boring. It's just not interesting. The characters are not interesting. They have no defining personalities. They just gather together. They argue with each other. Who's going out in the woods? They know the slasher villain is around the corner. They are aware of the fact, late into the picture, about halfway through, that there's a slasher villain. Not to mention that there's some sort of remote little cabin that has animal remains and all sorts of things. So they figure it's Edgar, played by Joe Pantoliano, who's doing all this. So they're out in the woods and they're calling each other's names. Hey, where is Wendy? Where is Marco? Hey, Dennis, Margaret. They're yelling. So of course they're giving away where they are, instead of just trying to find their way through the woods, which of course, when you're hiking, as I often have in the past, the tree branches and everything, it's just, you're making noise already. It's very difficult not to make noise when you are walking through brush, sticks, rocks, and dirt. Not to mention yelling people's names. It's that kind of movie. Now, I knew this was going to be probably crap anyway. I certainly wasn't expecting a miracle even from the director. But this movie just doesn't even try. It just doesn't even try. And why are the characters so unlikable? Other than the women, why? So, and then there's also seen the first gory kill, which is a couple having sex. And he's knifed, but she's taken as a hostage, which is a little unusual, I will say, for a slasher picture. This is no better than, say, The Burning, which came out in 1981, which has the sheer distinction of having not just Jason Alexander in it, with hair, and I believe that was his debut role, but also Holly Hunter in her debut role, who you'll forget she was even in it because she never has a line of dialogue. But these movies are all the same. They're indistinguishable. I mean, are you kidding me? There is nothing to this. I don't understand how people find a certain amount of charm in these pictures. There's nothing charming about this movie. The opening scene of the movie, I forgot to mention, so maybe there are technically 3 gory kills in this picture. The opening scene is a motorbike traveling through the woods, and this was shot by the editor of the film. This was not something Andrew Davis, the director, wanted in the film at all, but they were trying to secure a distributor, so they figured that they need at least an extra gory kill to sell it. And the bike, they say, oh, watch out, and you see in slow motion, the bike sort of flips on its side, they fall over, and then there are a couple of traps where one of them ends up, being hung up in the trees with some sort of something that cuts his neck open. And then the woman is also killed after she tries to go to a nearby camp to get help and finds nobody's around. I mean, come on. There is really... This movie is just indistinguishable is the best way to put it. So if you are interested in knowing what films some of your actors first appeared in, which usually at this time for certain 80s contemporary actors. They started out in slasher pictures. Then check it out, but you're going to be bored by it. If you find this exciting, I don't know what to say. So anyway, those are my thoughts on The Final Terror. I just saw another slasher film back around Christmas called Silent Night, Deadly Night, which I'd never seen, but of course heard about for years. I'm not really a fan of many of these films. I'm not expected to be. Nightmare on Elm Street is still my favorite, and it's a terrific movie because it has imagination, and the characters are actually interesting. You got to know some of the characters before they're killed. So, and Freddy Krueger is still, cream of the crop. I mean, that's he's a great villain because he has a personality. There's something to him, and a history. So, I don't know. But those are just my thoughts. Have you seen The Final Terror? What do you think of it? What do you think of Andrew Davis, the director? Have you seen his other films? Can we all agree that maybe his other films, his subsequent work was better than this? I certainly hope so. So, those are just my thoughts. Hit like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I do review films most of the time and talk about film topics and all sorts of things, cinematically related. And if you are a subscriber, thank you. I got a few more subscribers in the last week, so I'm grateful for that. And actually, of all my reviews, the one that seems to have really caught on was my review of Charles Bronson in Mr. Majestic. So that's rather interesting. I don't know what was so special about my review, but of all my reviews, that's the one that really caught on. So hey, that's pretty good, I guess. So, those are my thoughts. Lend me yours. And I guess that's all I got to say about The Final Terror. It may be a little while before I see another slasher picture from the 1980s. Anything current, I don't know yet, but tell me what you think. So, that's about it. This is Jerry Saravia at the Movies, signing off.